I'd like to start by thanking you for being here. As Sokuzan often does, just let you know that we really appreciate all the support you show through your contributions and your participation. There's a great deal, and I mean a great deal, that goes into keeping this functioning, operating up and running, just being able to continue to make these teachings available, let alone the maintenance of the building. So anything you can offer is always greatly received and appreciated. And again, if nothing else, your greatest gift is your participation in these teachings and practices.
And I think it's something that I talk about that would be historical, maybe. So I will attempt to do something there. Please ask questions. Usually I do better in the area of responding to questions because seems like I know more than I feel like I know. I don't really feel like I remember much. But I'll start out with the how was it you suggested?
3 turnings.
The 3 turnings are of the teaching are the teaching, the provisional teachings are on the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 12 Links, and so on. And then we get into the Prajnaparamita literature and other teachings also that talk about teachings on emptiness, that everything is empty of what you consider it to be, or and so on. And that's the main sutra there is the Heart Sutra. Yes, sir.
Is this also open for mountains and rivers?
Pardon me?
Is it also open for mountains and rivers?
Yeah, questions. Yeah, asking questions. Yes. So that's probably what it'll end up being. So first turning is provisional, just laying the groundwork for how to work with this. And that area is, I think I mentioned a little earlier, was if you read the Nikayas or early teachings, you'll see that there's a lot of emphasis on training the mind and getting it to calm down and function a certain way. This is what the jhana states are referring to. And I don't teach that. I'm not saying you couldn't find someone that could teach you that. And what would I say? Go ahead. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what you need to do, is go and work with that situation. Sometimes they're called absorptions. So there are different ways of laying that out. And I'm not recalling what those, I think there's 4 of them. Does anybody know what those are? Probably do. You're just not speaking up. So I think the Majjhima Nikaya talks about Satipatthana, that kind of meditation where you're actually trying to establish a certain dynamic in consciousness that is stable. And before you go into what's sometimes called Vipassana or Mahavipassana, great panoramic awareness. And that's all workable. And sometimes teachers start out with that. My teacher did. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche taught that way early on. Although the very first time I sat with him there wasn't any instruction. You just sat still. They struck a gong and you just sat there. There's no instruction, literally. And then the Prajnaparamita literature is like the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, is addressing that everything that shows up is empty in its fundamental nature, that emptiness is that the form you see is empty of your considerations, your ideas about it. And then even that emptiness that you see there is also empty. So it kind of doubles back on itself. Pretty hard to get a foothold, let alone a reference point. Although there are some traditions that emphasize that second turning. Not incorrect. And then there's a third turning that is talked about in different ways. Yogacara tradition talks about that. And the idea there is that rather than just the emptiness is empty, we leave it at that, which, as I said, some teachers and teachings and schools of thought of Buddhism actually emphasize that's all you need to do. Madhyamaka is one of the approaches there. And Buddha nature, the way it looks here, is that everything is empty of what you thought it was, but it's full of what it actually is, and you see that. I'm not saying that that someone who is who's working with second turning teaching isn't seeing Buddha nature. They may not call it that or talk about it in that way. It may be, as is sometimes said in the teachings, an open secret. So the Buddha nature, seeing that everything is not separate from the so-called one who awakened or who awoke, not separate from that, is not a conclusion. It's more like just it's always been there, and you just stop covering it up, stop ignoring by seeing the way you ignore, seeing the way the three poisons, passion, aggression, and ignorance, continue to cover up. And that's generated by fear. It's generated by hope for something better, a hope for getting somewhere. I would say it this way: if you see the truth completely, you will know it in the sense that you won't have doubts about it. But it's more about there not being anyone to have doubts rather than there being no doubts. Doubts may come and go, but you won't have doubts about the doubts, and nor will the doubts be propelled by a doubter. And you might say, I doubt that. And I would probably chuckle. So we have some questions. Do we have a question?
Yes,
Go ahead.
probably following. Is there a difference, and what is the difference between delusion and the ego's paranoia?
What's the difference between delusion and the
Ego's paranoia.
ego's paranoia? Same, although the ego the paranoia there may not show up as what you would call or anyone would call paranoia. It maybe just feel like that's just the truth. Someone who's paranoid actually thinks what they're afraid of is real, and they need to get out of there. Because if they could see that it was an illusion, then it wasn't real, then they might still have the feeling, but wouldn't necessarily run away. Kind of like waking up from a nightmare. You're still kind of afraid, but you also know that was a dream. That's a nightmare. That's not, glad that isn't real. More?
Wonderbond, what is the difference between the three turnings for the concept of dependent origination? Is there a difference between them?
Dependent origination is just the way the illusion shows up so that we can get some kind of understanding of it. So we say that this causes that, causes that. So it looks, everything that you see as a separate identity or thing or object is dependent on everything else for its apparent singularity, or that it looks like it's a singular situation that's over there that is real. And this shows up not only in our physical environment, but in our mind stream too. Dependent origination is showing up there also as a way of talking about relative truth and karma and so on.
Wonderbond, there is no development of that idea that was in the first turnings, but then it's also in the second and the third. Is there any?
I think it's everywhere. I don't know if it's something that's talked about much, particularly. I mean, unless it's necessary to discuss it. And I don't know if you went and looked in the Abhidharma material, you might find structures there that would address the historical aspect, which don't recall right now. Not that I haven't known it in the past, but I don't know. Well,
Wonderbond, same thing with awareness. Is there a difference between the three turnings and the idea of awareness, or what awareness is?
If I were to make up something about it, I could say that the first turning, you're still seeing that there's somebody that is having problems, and you're trying to see through that, trying to see there's no solid ego. The five skandhas are empty of a self, and emptiness teaching. So you're seeing that everything is empty of what you think it is. There's no one who even thinks that, and there is nothing that's even empty. And the very statement of emptiness is also a form. So even that is empty. So then getting to the the third turning teaching of Buddha nature, it's you don't really see anything. The otherness is gone. The self is gone back in the Hinayana. They started to see through that there's no solid self. And then you begin to see there's no other, empty of other, even though you have to save all beings. You do that so that you can see that there are no separate beings. And then the understanding of Buddha nature, a third turning teaching, is that nothing's happened at all. There isn't anything. It's completely gone. It's not even the word emptiness doesn't serve, because there's still something that was there and now it's gone, or something that is there but it's an illusion because it's empty of what we presume it to be. It's worse than that, and it's better than that. It's worse than that because the ego gets no oxygen there at all. It cannot survive. That illusion cannot persist without some kind of polarity that it can enlist. And so you could even say you don't even see Buddha nature, because you're not separate from Buddha nature. You're not separate from the Buddha. This has been pointed out in various traditions, especially in the Zen and Chan traditions and Tibetan traditions too, for a long time. You are the Buddha. It's like the saying in Zen, you see the Buddha on the road, kill him. It doesn't mean kill somebody. It just means it's trying to help you see that you can't see the Buddha somewhere else. That you're the Buddha. So if you see something you think is the Buddha, then that's a misunderstanding. I mean, you could take that all different. Well, what if I see my teacher? Isn't that the Buddha? Oh, maybe. Well,
Divine. So then, is awareness different? Is there a different understanding or different
for what?
between the three turnings?
Well, you're moving along, and there's less clinging, less influence of passion, aggression, and ignorance to create some kind of chaos. But you're still in the world. There's still a physical form. The world is full of craziness and violence. Passion, aggression, ignorance is everywhere. Most of the world, billions of people are fighting with themselves and with others. Well,
So if with each of the turnings, you say you can awaken in any of those traditions,
yes.
is there a difference to that, to enlightenment?
So I'm biased there, though. My understanding is if anything has occurred or if anything has changed, then this is not awakening. It's some kind of an improvement. I used to be this way, but now this way. You can't get away from this. But it is. There isn't anything else but this. And if you think there is, then you're what? Dividing and separating, picking and choosing, going after this, stopping that, thinking that some people don't get it and you get it. Difficult.
Divine. So just to go into that more, with the first turning teachings,
Working on yourself.
that is still
Provision.
considered awaken.
Well, there is an awakening there that there's no self, there's no solid being in the skandhas. So you're beginning to see through that, but there's still attachment. And it's taught classically that until the first bhumi or pramudita, where you start to see that there's no you, you're still attached to seeing that there's somebody else, there's other. Thank you. I didn't even answer your question. Maybe she'll repeat it. Yes.
SokukoJi, I think I heard you say this once, so I guess my first question is seem plausible that you would say such a thing. I think
What?
I think
Wait. No, it seems implausible that I would say such a thing as what?
Oh, I'm gonna ask you if
Oh.
my memory might be correct, that you said that if you have a it's my paraphrase, complete understanding of the first noble truth, a complete understanding of suffering, that you can see all of the Buddha's truth or all of
Just
it.
a way of talking about it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, how, in what way could
Well,
the
so-
truth of
Not
suffering
enough.
get us all the way through the three turnings?
See, aren't you trying to get rid of your suffering?
Probably.
Anyone here not trying to get rid of their suffering or do something with it or correct it or fix it? Anybody? Any volunteers? You should ask me if I'm doing that.
Are you doing that?
Of course. I couldn't teach if I weren't doing that. Nothing occurs. Realize it. This is the rainbow body, not somebody having gas. This is it. And you're looking at it. Oh, not just this old man, but you're looking at it everywhere you go. When you go over to Mountain Lake, where you live, don't you live in the middle of a lake somewhere on a mountaintop? How did they get a lake on top of a mountain? Come on. Tell
Okay,
them.
helicopter.
The helicopter. Your teacher put it there.
No. In a helicopter?
Huh? It actually takes two helicopters because one is to hold the edge, the perimeter of the lake, and the other is to keep the bottom from getting scratched. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense at all. But since you think it does, it will go with what you think. You have further question?
Was it Kupon? You might have answered it, but I've lost it, so I'll ask it again. How would completely understanding suffering include all three turnings?
There isn't anything else. You see it, what you see, you fundamentally see what it is. Fundamentally. I don't know another word other than that. Everything just comes apart, collapses. There's no sufferer. There's no suffering. This doesn't mean that you're going to aren't going to look at someone over here who's being hurt or tortured or whatever by someone else and just sit back and say, that's unreal. That's an illusion. No, it's an intense, powerful illusion. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to ask a question? Jishin, better be good, Jishin.
Bowing. I already asked one bad, so maybe it's enough. What is the difference between the jhana state, self-absorption, and that third turning when nothing is seen? Bowing.
Jhana states are an absorption, so that it's not that there isn't some value there. It probably is, but it's about working with the mind in such a way that you close it off from everything. I mean, you don't particularly have thoughts. It's kind of a way of trying to create an enlightened being. And it's not that something couldn't be understood or served by that. Might have to go through some of that. So I'm not sure. Well, go ahead, please. You.
Isn't that in that state of self-absorption, nothing is seen, and it seems the description is similar to the third turning, as you said, that nothing is seen.
Yes, and yes, it's just that this is actually this is occurring as an experience that an individual, a person, a consciousness, a being who is practicing this is having. Whereas the fundamental understanding, there's no one experiences it. There's no experience to it. You have no proof. You have there's no way to even talk about it or discuss it or evaluate it or prove it. It's beyond that. It's the fancy word there is transcendent.
So how people who are awakened through that third turning can even talk about this?
Well, they just continue to talk out of what they're looking at or what they're seeing, and they are probably going to meet people who need that kind of help or relate to them as a teacher. So they're also teaching. I'm not going to say, well, they're not doing as good as some people. They're not doing what Zen does or what Chan does or what the Vajrayana. The Vajrayana is big on saying that, you can, this is the only way you can do this. So, and to some extent, there seems to be some truth to that, but not just the Vajrayana, but an ultimate understanding that does not exclude anything. Passion, aggression, ignorance. Sometimes in the Vajrayana, it's talked about as transmutation. It's taking the negative energy and it's just energy. And it's you could say it's like depersonalizing it. So there's no person there, there's just energy. Sort of Manjushri cuts both ways through self and other. It just all of the duality vanishes, yet there's still form and there's still energy and there's still this incredible presence that we call the present moment, authentic presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions?
Yuhong Baoying,
Done.
you said bring everything to the cushion, and sometimes sitting appears as one of my outlets for my own stress and distress. Is this appropriate part of the path?
Yes.
Baoying?
Yes. There may be times when you go another direction where you just need to go to the library or go for a walk or go do something else. But if you're having difficulty, I don't think sitting down, holding still, facing a wall, and just watching the energy coming and going in your mind stream is also valuable and appropriate, authentic thing to be doing. That doesn't mean you necessarily set up a standard where you always do that. You always look at the situation, and it might be better to, like I said, go for a walk or do something else.
Yuhong Baoying,
Yes.
when you say standards, it really depends on myself to define my own standards and how disciplined or how much that I need to sit and how long. How can I be more aware of? I think in general I'm a disciplined person, but I'm aware of what you have been teaching. Yet this is how I see myself. But I want to ask, to what extent that I need to tell myself I need to do something else instead of facing the difficulty sitting on my cushion.
No.
Bye.
I think you've already said it. You're already at a little bit of a dilemma there, and I would go both directions. Sometimes you might sit, other times you might write a letter to someone. That's a way of turning around going back into it, trying to solve something, and actually just be considerate of someone else. You might call somebody you haven't talked to in a long time, see how they're doing, see how things are going for them. So turn yourself towards others a little bit. Could be helpful rather than what I'm sensing. What it seems like you're saying is you feel like you're going in and working with your mind, and it seems kind of self-centered to you. Is that showing up that way?
Yuhong Baoying, I think I was not that clear. I feel like in my mind still there's a discipline part that this is a part I need to really look at, that instead of distract myself, even though I feel maybe miserable, not that much on my cushion. Somehow I still have that type of mentality inside of me. So I'm struggle dilemma is like how I can be genuinely passionate, take care of myself on the cushion. Fine.
So I can't come up with a particular do this, don't do that. I'm just saying, don't set up a standard for yourself. You already have a lot of awareness around whatever's coming and going, the way you're describing the situation. I would just keep going. There's nothing to solve. There's nothing to correct, but there is something to see. And the basic misunderstanding here, as you've heard me say many times, is mistaken identity, thinking that we're a solid, separate being who can win or lose or get ahead, or be depressed, or be confused, any of those things, any of those descriptions that support a separate self in this context, form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness. That's the breakdown, and those will still be there. Form will still be there. Consciousness will still be there. It just won't hook up with all of the other ones to form the illusion of somebody who can win, somebody who can lose. So the feeling of winning and losing could start to show up at the same time.
Thank you, bowing.
Welcome. Anyone in here? No? Yes, no? Yes,
Andre Bowden,
yes.
some time ago, Yuhan and I believe Justine, they had a question.
Yuhang and Jishin.
Justine, yes.
Okay.
They had a question and it pointed at the Bodhisattva vow and moral fortitude. My question has a little preamble, which is other religions or faiths have a repentance type base, a moral fortitude where it's focused on we go to the teacher or the abbot or the father or.
Yes. What's the question? I got you. It's
Okay. My question is, in this faith, particularly this teaching, what is the moral fortitude or the spiritual repentance that's connected to the mundane?
Okay, so there is something like that in the vows, which I don't know if you've looked at those or not, but there is it's just acknowledging that you screwed up here and there, but no more about it. But just the acknowledgement that you've stepped in this direction, stepped on somebody's toes, and done things that were maybe not the most helpful to other people. And just the acknowledgement of it, but not laboring and trying to get some kind of forgiveness in there. Yeah, that's more.
Yes, definitely more. With that being said, and to go further with the teaching, this particular teaching where no corrections or no wrong, nobody wrong or fault or blame.
Yes.
Well, in a moral fortitude or in a repentance, where what would stop somebody from harming somebody else or doing something to somebody else if they don't have that type of fortitude or spiritual compass?
In other words, a law or a rule to abide by.
Or form.
Well, the form, if you read the 16 precepts, it's full of that. Do the 3 pure precepts is do good, don't do harm, and we don't really need to explain that to anybody. You kind of know when you're doing something that is destructive or harmful to others, and you also know it's a relative thing, but we have to start somewhere. And then be with all things. That's the 3rd pure precept. Was it whatever shows up? Don't agree. That's not being with all things. Don't disagree. That's not being with all things. And don't ignore it. That's not being with all things. What is being with all things? Just receive it. Just look at it. And if you start to add your own interpretations, ideas, and judgments on what's happening, then just receive that too. Don't correct it. Go ahead.
Yes, more. With that being also said, looking at other faiths and religions, even though it's relatively speaking what they're doing in a way, but it's still a fortitude, a moral fortitude that they bring to others, bring to an abbot, bring to even hurting themselves with self-mutilation at some point, because they feel there's a need for correction, because if they're harming somebody else, they are to blame, which was the topic we kind of had today. Who's to blame? And what we're going to do about blame? Do I just go around here, excuse my language, shitting on people because I want to, then be like, hey, no corrections needed. So at that point, when we're intentionally harming others and know what is our fundamental compass, what do we do other than just receive? I mean, do we do more or should we do more?
Well, you're going to produce, if you haven't noticed, we're constantly thinking all kinds of crap and all kinds of good things and all kinds of neutral things. So we're going to produce. So the idea there is to train the mind so that you can be a witness or an observer of what's coming towards you and what you're outflowing and what you're shoving back in the face of others or presenting to them or being generous to them, no matter what it is. It's about being aware of that. Looks like 2 different things. Maybe not. Let's look closely at it. This is what is being encouraged rather than live up to some kind of a guideline. We do have vows that we observe the vows. We don't obey them. So be with all things. And the first vow is don't kill. But that, you can't help but kill. If you're gonna stay alive, you're gonna kill something. And then people will come along and try to make that into, well, I don't kill anything if it has a mother. I don't kill anything that has, but there's all kinds of ways to make that look okay. Killing is killing. If it's a living being, I don't care if it's a tree or a chipmunk, that's still taking some life, and it's about being aware of that so that you understand what that dynamic is. You may have to kill something in order to continue to live. So it's about observing those vows. Don't say things that aren't true. And that it's about being aware of that. And that's very subtle. It's very hard to be a living being without lying. I remember saying something to someone a long time ago that they you can't help but lie. And they really got upset with me. I don't ever lie. This person's only about 25 years old. So might have had a little bit of difficulty having an old man talk to them that way. But you can't help but lie. If you have questions about that, I'm here. You can't help it. Can't. But it's the intention to be sincere, be genuine, be honest. That is a powerful one. And the other thing I would say on top of all of that, Andre, I don't think this can be done by thinking about it. You have to do a lot of sitting meditation, a lot of it. I hesitate to say how much because it's pretty staggering. Before I sat up on a seat like this and began to function as a teacher, I spent over 30 years doing what you're doing when you're doing the book study and coming in here and sitting, and then a long time before I began to teach in this way. I taught people how to meditate, but beyond that, not much. Takes a long time. And your questions are valid. And as far as commenting on other religious organizations or ways that this shows up down through the centuries, that people are just doing the best they can to help others. And sometimes if we get a few people in there that's what the original teacher was saying, sometimes that gets skewed. So it's not exactly what they were saying. And that's why we have so much disagreement between religions and so on. Thank you. Yes.
Divine, building on what Andre was just saying, what does Buddhism address in terms of confession or punishment? Like other religions are so focused on bowing.
Well, I'm not saying some of that doesn't happen or hasn't happened in Buddhism. It's been around 2,500 years, so there's all kinds of things that could show up that way. But punishment is just a misunderstanding. If you're actually punishing someone for something they did wrong, it's just a misunderstanding of it, thinking that someone is somehow responsible in the cause and effect way, in the blame way. You can't really blame someone. Just like I often say, go look in the mirror. You didn't do that. You didn't create this. I'm not saying it's some dynamic in consciousness isn't creating the way you look and the tone of voice and everything about your sexual orientation. I'm not saying that isn't dependent. There isn't being caused by causation, but there's no fundamental blame or credit. More?
What about confession? What is?
We have that. I can't remember. Can you remember the vow? Did you ever say that vow?
Besides, I vow to be with all things.
No, the
I vow
one
to refrain from all action that creates attachment. I vow to live in enlightenment. I vow to save all beings.
How about the one where I can't think of what it is when we do the Chukai. Do you remember that one?
Formless repentance.
Yes.
I don't remember the contents of it.
What? You've forgotten something? Oh no. Formless repentance. Can anyone remember that? How that is? That's the very word formless means something there.
I just remember the start.
What is it?
Every action created by me
From beginning of time,
from beginningless time.
I fully avow. Is that it? Yeah. And I only remember it when you start saying it. So that just means I'm acknowledging it. It's not, I fully avow. every action since beginning of time, and this takes us beyond this lifetime. So you're actually acknowledging something you have no memory of, but you're setting up a something in consciousness where this can actually be included in all the things you don't even remember. Just like you don't remember what happened on May 23rd. Can anybody tell me what happened on May 23rd of 2021? You're not going to remember unless it's your birthday. And even then you won't remember the whole birthday party, or you might remember that nobody gave you a birthday party or a present. Remember a lot of things but you won't remember what you had for breakfast. So the whole memory thing is quite vague, but we use memory all the time to keep advancing our case about we've been abused, we've been mistreated, me.
Wunderbar. How are we responsible yet not to blame?
So the way I talk about that is responsible. Then you are. There isn't anything is separated from you, but fundamentally, the fundamental understanding is you are this consciousness. All the people. This is why, and then when this starts to show up, you feel more and more like you want to take care of people and help them, but you don't want to interfere with whatever karma they have to. Whatever they have to work with in their life. So you don't want to get in the way of that, but if there's an opening where you could possibly help them, then you'll have some communication where you would see that there's maybe some responsibility to help that person fundamentally in some way. But there's no standard that you're living up to, because that blocks out the differentiation and desire that's happening everywhere through each person in their own way. So you don't need a credential that you're helping people. You just need to receive everything, and you'll see what you need to do next. You're not separate from dependent origination. You're not a separate being. That's an illusion.
Wunderbar. So as a community, as a monastery, we're organized.
Yes.
With those that vow and those precepts.
Yes.
And society at large be organized that way?
So it's a big one. Look at the difficulty we have here, and everyone's intention is to be help others and meet others where they're at. Hopefully, some of that's happening. We're endeavoring to meet our own difficulty where we're at and try to extend that to others through the vow to be with all things, save all beings, which is quite an aspiration. Very hard to do when the walls of the mind are supported by your own karma, your own causes and conditions that cause us to just be worried about this or fretting about that or judging this person. So that's all to be observed, not fixed, not repaired. It goes way beyond the simple causation of fixing this or stopping that or controlling things. Be aware.
Andre Bond,
Yes, sir.
building off of what Hondo was just speaking on conversation. Is this confession and repentance, is this the reason you often say we need a teacher, should have a teacher?
Well, that's how it looks to me. I certainly wouldn't even be sitting here presuming to teach anything if I hadn't had teachers. So otherwise, we just keep trying to fix ourselves, or negativity arises in the mind stream, and we want to stop it. So we might use anything from medications to different kinds of drugs or activity. Some people are extremely active. My mother was somebody that she just was busy all the time. She wasn't at work. She was might have been partying or something at the bowling alley, but she was busy cleaning house, putting things away, organizing things, and that helped her avoid what I think she would have stumbled into some kind of depression, probably. It didn't keep really, really busy.
So the trust of their bond. So if there's an oath or a bond between a teacher and a
Yes,
student, and it's an oath, then I would say between taking, the oath would be would stop the vow, right?
the vow, yes, yeah, the vow, that's a simple way of, that we receive that vow is the vow to be with all things, whatever happens, don't agree, don't object, don't ignore.
Yeah,
And also personalize, it would be save all beings, put others before yourself. They want a real pragmatic way of doing it. Everyone that shows up in front of you, put them before yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to kiss their butt or do what they want. Or it's more the other way around. You're not about to do anything that that adds to the confusion or justifies it, or you won't do anything with it at all. It will not be comfortable to that part of consciousness that is still a fist, that is wrapped up and is paranoid about this and that, and is tightened up. This has to open, and the only way it can open is to see that it's closed. You can't just open up your idea of the ego. You have to actually look at it, and it does not smell good, feel good, taste good, think good, feel good. Doesn't sound good. It's just that we have to bring our awareness to that. And the way that I know of is to face the wall, not go into the jhana states, or not try to create an artificial person who's sealed off from everything and has a sense of silence and tranquility and stillness. More?
yes. Seem to be like almost like a contractual thing between the teacher and student, because the oath itself. If somebody violate that oath, would it bond also be? Would it also make a bond wedge or deal breaker between the teacher and the student?
That is used in the tantric tradition. There's a powerful bond there called damchig, or where you and your teacher and your yidam, or your meditation deity, are all tied together, so not separate. It's just another way of talking about not separate. So you have that kind of a vow. I received that vow from my teacher.
One more question, thank you.
Yeah.
So, you just mentioned karma. We have to kind of allow that to happen, like the observers. But
Yeah.
that have to extend to a certain extent. How far we have to observe before we can, hey, that's a hot line there where electricity is flowing and you shouldn't walk into that road.
So you're basically saying it just it's situational. There are times when it's obvious, but if it's not obvious to you, then you shouldn't do anything at all. Just the way I would talk about it. Don't do anything unless you have to. This will show up more as the vow of patience, because you're not going to do anything unless you have to do it.
Excuse me, violence. So it sounds like awareness is once you become aware of that danger or aware of the karma, even though you have to observe it, at some point you may have to save the being too. So which is we're going to do, save the person, allow the karma to destroy the person.
Don't do anything unless you have to. And you won't understand what I just said, as simple as it sounds, unless you have a lot of time on the cushion, seeing that there's no solid being there who can make that decision. Because if there's a solid being there, then you will operate out of right and wrong, or I can't let that go on, or I have to stop this, or you'll operate out of paranoia, hope, and fear. The only way you can operate out of reality is when the consciousness is liberated from attachment to a body or to a mind. And you won't be aware that has happened. If you liberate yourself, there will be no consciousness left to claim anything. You won't be able to claim that you even are alive. There's a body still going, there's a brain, there's a mind, there's a conjecture, there's a maybe worry about this or about that. But liberation goes beyond that, consciousness only. This is a teaching that goes back a long time.
Question, please.
Go ahead.
So in between that certain level of awakeness. Just living in this illusion as a regular person, what I'm supposed to do, what we are supposed to do.
Don't do anything.
We're not there yet, like you just explained, to the point where we can just allow things to happen and things to do. In this relative world, relatively speaking, I'm not supposed to say, watch out for that truck.
Do a lot of sitting. I follow your question. It's a valid question, but do a lot of sitting so that you can see different ways of asking that question that might get closer to what it is that you personally are covering up. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that sit a lot.
Well, I understand, I'm
Good.
about to cover up. That's
Good.
definitely, I think about the teaching here, you're gonna face that, everybody, even our song on Zoom. We know that, we talk about it all the time. Let's study, so thank you.
Yes, sir. Mozuku.
Mozuku, somewhere in this it came up. I think you said something, you were talking about religions and how a teaching can get just distorted.
Yes.
Not have been the word you used. It seems like it's easy for the ego to draw on a teaching to support our positionality.
Mhm.
As a community, how can we return to the spirit of the intention behind the teaching when that shows up?
So include what's happening rather than try to push it away so you can do something else. Just include it. It's just part of it. It's just the whole scenario. Include. That doesn't mean reach out and grab it and drag it into your mind stream. But if it's there, just include it. It's just part of it. It's just part of the wallpaper, part of the woodwork. It's just it's just an aspect of it. Include more or more specific question about that if you have it.
Mozuku bowing. Seems like any teaching that I might be able to draw on to support my position, I could also find a teaching that something that you said that would be the opposite of that. Seems
Sure.
like there's an intention that's beyond just the words, just quoting you. Is there a teaching that's beyond the words?
Yes.
Once you're gone, or that
I'm
your
gone
body is
now.
gone,
I'm gone now. I'm gone.
when your body's no longer here,
Then
How
I'll be
is
here.
it?
Then I'll really be here. You'll see. You'll smell, you'll taste, you'll touch, you'll feel, you'll think. More?
is there anything we can do as a community to support the intention?
Yes, see. And that's not Spanish. Communicate, which means listen. Cooperate, which means look at the movement around you with others. See if there's a way that you can enter that dance, or just hold your seat. And then collaborate, see the issues that are happening with others that are difficult, and see if there's some way that you can support that. This is what this whole forum, it's not about worshiping some golden idol. It's a community. CCC. That's the fourth one, is the community part, that's supposed to show up on its own. Sangha, spiritual community. Yeah. So should we close? Or?
I'd like to start by thanking you for being here. As Sokusan often does, just let you know that we really appreciate all the support you show through your contributions and your participation. There's a great deal, and I mean a great deal, that goes into keeping this functioning, operating, up and running, just being able to continue to make these teachings available, let alone the maintenance of the building. So anything you can offer is always greatly received and appreciated. And again, if nothing else, your greatest gift is your participation in these teachings and practices.